The crystalline archives beneath Luminara's surface had stood untouched for 3,000 years. Technician Yevra Quinn carefully brushed away the prismatic dust from the ancient data core, her four slender fingers trembling with anticipation. As a xenoarchaeologist for the Celestial Harmony, she had excavated hundreds of relics from extinct civilizations, but something about this one felt different. Yevra, are you certain this is safe? Her assistant chirped from the tunnel entrance, his bioluminescent skin flickering nervously. When has caution ever led to discovery? Yevra smiled, connecting her scanner to the weathered device. The core hummed to life, projecting streams of data into the air. Her breath caught. By the eternal light, it's a message beacon, and it's still transmitting. Within hours, the discovery reached the Harmony Council. Ambassador Thalin Morris stood before the holographic projection in the Grand Convocation Hall, his elegant robes shimmering as he gestured toward the floating imagery. Around him, representatives from 47 peaceful species watched in wonder. Honored members, Thalin's voice resonated with barely contained excitement. What you are witnessing is a first contact package from a species calling themselves humans. The projection shifted, showing images of a blue-green world labeled Earth. Children laughed in parks, musicians played strange stringed instruments, artists painted landscapes of breathtaking beauty. Scientists gazed through telescopes at distant stars. The message was simple, hopeful. We are humanity. We reach out in friendship to whoever finds this. We dream of a galaxy where all beings live in harmony. High Chancellor Orvith, the eldest of the council, leaned forward on his staff. His ancient eyes glistened. How long has this beacon been transmitting? Approximately 400 standard years, Yevra reported. It was launched during their early space age, sent toward this sector with dozens of others. 4 centuries? Whispered Counselor Bryn, her feathered crest rising with emotion. Imagine their anticipation. Imagine them waiting for a response. Thalin felt his heart swell. This was precisely what the Celestial Harmony had been founded to achieve, bringing peaceful species together in mutual respect and cultural exchange. Honored Chancellor, I propose we respond with our full ceremonial welcome. Let us show humanity that their hopes were not misplaced. The vote was unanimous. Over the following weeks, Luminara transformed into a celebration. The finest artists from across the Harmony created welcoming gifts. Musicians composed symphonies, blending 47 distinct traditions. The diplomatic fleet, 12 vessels of elegant curves and gleaming pearl-white hulls, prepared for the journey. To human space. Captain Jorn Vex, selected to lead the diplomatic mission, stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn and gazed at the preparations with pride. His ship carried no weapons. The Harmony had abandoned warfare millennia ago. Instead, its holds were filled with artistic treasures, scientific knowledge freely shared, and gifts of rare elements that might help humanity's development. Captain, his navigator reported, we've calculated the trajectory to the coordinates included in humanity's beacon. The journey will take 18 days. Then let us not delay. Somewhere out there, humanity awaits. They sent out their message in hope and friendship. It is time they learned their message was heard. As the diplomatic fleet departed Luminara amid clouds of bioluminescent farewell flowers released into space, Thalin stood in his quarters, reviewing the human message once more. He watched a human child laughing, chasing something called a butterfly through green grass under golden sunlight. Soon, he whispered to the image, soon you will know you are not alone. Soon, you will join the great family of peaceful civilizations. He had no way of knowing how wrong his assumptions were. He had no way of knowing that the Earth that sent that hopeful message no longer existed. The humanity that awaited them had been forged in fires that would have shattered the Harmony's very understanding of civilization. The diplomatic fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying hope toward an encounter with something far more terrifying than anyone aboard could possibly imagine. The edge of the Luminara system shimmered with exit signatures as the Harmony's diplomatic fleet emerged from hyperspace. Captain Joran Vex stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, his expression radiant with anticipation. "Beautiful approach, navigator," he said warmly. "Now, open all broadcasting channels. Let humanity know we come as friends." Before his communications officer could respond, every alarm on the bridge erupted simultaneously. "Captain," the sensor operator's voice cracked with panic. Multiple massive contacts emerging from hyperspace, reading hundreds, no thousands of signatures. The view screen shifted, and Joran's world stopped. They came like a swarm of locusts, but these were no insects. Colossal warships materialized from the void, their hulls scarred with the evidence of countless battles. These vessels were nothing like the elegant curves of Harmony design. They were angular, brutal, covered in armor plating that looked like it had been melted and reformed a dozen times. Weapon batteries bristled from every surface. Engine cores burned with barely contained fury. "By the eternal light," Joran whispered, "what are they?" His tactical officer's voice was hollow. "Captain, they're broadcasting human identification codes." Ambassador Thalen Morris burst onto the bridge, his face pale. "That's impossible. The beacon showed us artists, philosophers, dreamers." Not this." On the command deck of the Terran battleship Vindication, Fleet Admiral Sienna Graves stood with arms crossed behind her back. Her gray hair was pulled back in a severe knot, and her uniform bore ribbons from campaigns whose names would mean nothing to the peaceful species ahead. "Status." Her voice cut through the bridge with mechanical precision. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, barely 25 but already a veteran of the Centauri suppression, reported crisply, "Scanning complete, Admiral. 12 vessels ahead. Minimal armor, no weapons detected. Power signatures consistent with civilian technology." Civilian. Graves' eyebrow raised fractionally. In deep space? This far from any charted world? "They're broadcasting on all frequencies, ma'am. Message claims they're a diplomatic delegation from something called the Celestial Harmony. They say they're here to welcome humanity to the galactic community." The bridge fell silent. Several officers exchanged glances. One young ensign suppressed what might have been a nervous laugh. Graves turned slowly to face the view screen, studying the delicate vessels ahead. They looked like flowers, like art installations, like everything humanity had lost 400 years ago when the colony wars began, when Earth's children turned on each other across 100 worlds, when peace became a forgotten word and survival became the only truth. "They came to welcome us," she said softly, almost to herself. Then louder, "Webb, full tactical analysis. Are those ships a threat?" Webb checked his console, his expression troubled. "Admiral, I'm not reading any weapons. Not concealed, not powered down, nothing. These ships are completely unarmed." Unarmed ships entering unknown space. Graves' jaw tightened. Either they're extraordinarily foolish, or they've never encountered real danger. On the Eternal Dawn, panic had given way to confusion. Thalen forced himself to approach the communication station. "Open a channel, now." The channel opened, and for a moment, only static filled the space between two civilizations. "This is Ambassador Thalen Morris of the Celestial Harmony. We come in peace and friendship. We received your beacon, sent 400 years ago from Earth. Your message of hope and unity moved us deeply. We have come to welcome you, to share knowledge, art, and culture, to invite humanity to join our alliance of peaceful species." The silence stretched. Thalen could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Then a voice responded, female, cold as the void itself. Ambassador Thalen, this is Fleet Admiral Sienna Graves of the Terran Expeditionary Force. I have reviewed your message. I have one question. Did your beacon tell you what happened to humanity after we sent those messages into the dark? Thalen hesitated. No, Admiral. We hoped you had continued on your path of peace and exploration. A sound came through the channel. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. Ambassador, the humanity that sent those beacons died 370 years ago. They died when we colonized our first distant worlds and immediately began fighting over them. They died in the colony wars, in the Mars Rebellion, in the Titan Massacre, in conflicts so brutal, we stopped naming them and started numbering them. Thalen felt something cold settle in his chest. Then why? Why are you here? Because, Graves replied, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of blood. Because we heard your invitation. We heard you speak of peace, of unity, of harmony. And we needed to see if such things still existed anywhere in this galaxy. We needed to know if we were the only species that evolution had cursed with violence. Marcus Webb leaned toward his admiral, whispering urgently, "Ma'am, long-range sensors are picking up something else. Unknown vessels entering the system from the opposite vector. Configuration matches radar patterns from the outer rim." The admiral's expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened. How many? 43 contacts, heavily armed. They're moving toward the diplomatic vessels. The admiral turned back to the viewscreen. Ambassador Thalen, you're about to have company. Hostile company. Does your celestial harmony have any military capabilities? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Thalen looked at Captain Joran, who slowly shook his head. We abolished our military forces 2,000 years ago, Admiral. We have not needed them since then. Another pause. Then Graves' voice, somehow even colder. Then Ambassador Thalen, you're about to learn what humanity became. Webb, signal the fleet. Battle formation, Theta. All ships, weapons free. Time to show our new friends what 400 years of war teaches a species. The Terran Armada moved, and Thalen realized with mounting horror that humanity hadn't come to join the peaceful galaxy. They had come to save it. The Raider fleet descended on the Luminaris system like predators spotting wounded prey. Their ships were patchwork vessels, cobbled together from a dozen conquered species, bristling with stolen weapons. They had been tracking the Harmony's diplomatic fleet for days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Their commander, a four-armed Krell named Vashtar, laughed as his scanners revealed the delicate Harmony vessels. No weapons, no shields worth mentioning. We'll strip them and sell the crew at the terminus markets. Easy profit. Then his tactical officer made a strangled sound. "Commander, there are others, many others." Vashtar's grin faded as his display updated. The human fleet hadn't just moved, they had transformed. What had appeared to be a loose formation of warships now formed an impenetrable wall between the raiders and the diplomatic vessels. Every weapon system on every Terran ship had locked onto the raider fleet with mathematical precision. What species is that?" Vashtar whispered. His database returned a single word that made his blood run cold. Human. Aboard the Vindication, Admiral Graves watched the raider fleet hesitate. Good. Fear was a universal language. "Admiral," Marcus Webb reported, "the raiders are attempting to flee." Denied. Webb, send a message on all channels. These vessels are under Terran protection. Depart immediately or be eliminated. You have 30 seconds. Phelan, still connected to the Terran channel, felt his chest tighten. "Admiral, please, is there no way to resolve this peacefully? Perhaps we could negotiate. Ambassador, Grace interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. You live in a galaxy you believe is peaceful because species like mine stand between you and species like them. 30 seconds is more mercy than they've shown their victims. The raiders scattered, jumping to hyperspace in panic. The Terran fleet didn't pursue. They simply resumed their protective formation, weapons still hot, watching. Silence filled the Eternal Dawn's bridge. Finally, Captain Joran spoke, his voice shaking. They ran from you. Without firing a single shot, they ran. Yes, Graves replied simply, because they know what we are. Phelan closed his eyes, struggling with everything he had witnessed. What you are? You're warriors, killers, everything our society left behind millennia ago. We are survivors, Ambassador. A new voice entered the channel, rougher, older. Admiral, this is Engineer Petros Nash reporting, requesting permission to speak. Granted, Nash. Ambassador, Petros is one of our civilian engineers. He maintains our agricultural systems. The voice that came through carried pain and wisdom in equal measure. Ambassador Thalen, I'm 73 years old. My grandfather was born on Earth before the colony wars. He remembered the time when we sent those beacons you found. He told me stories of that Earth, of music in parks, of children who never knew war, of artists who believed humanity's future was among the stars as friends to all we might meet. Thalen listened, transfixed. But that Earth died, Ambassador, not because we wanted it to, not because we were evil, but because when we spread to the stars, we brought our conflicts with us. Resources became scarce. Colonies wanted independence. Old hatreds found new battlefields. Within 100 years, humanity was tearing itself apart across 50 worlds. Petros paused, his voice roughening. I've spent my life growing food on warships, Ambassador. Think about that. We've been fighting so long that we farm on vessels designed to kill. But I've never forgotten my grandfather's stories. I've never forgotten that we sent those beacons hoping to find friends. High Chancellor Orvitz's voice suddenly joined the channel from Luminara. This is Chancellor Orveth of the Celestial Harmony. I have been listening to this exchange. Admiral Graves, Engineer Nash, I believe I understand something now. You did not come to join us. You came to see if the dream your ancestors sent into the void had found an answer. Yes, Graves admitted. We needed to know if peace was possible, if somewhere in this galaxy, species had achieved what we could not. And now, Phelan asked quietly, now that you've seen us, seen our weakness. Marcus Webb, the young lieutenant, spoke for the first time directly to the Harmony. It's not weakness, Ambassador. It's everything we lost, everything we've been fighting to protect, even though we don't have it anymore. Graves turned sharply. Lieutenant. Webb stood his ground. Permission to speak freely, Admiral. These people, the Harmony, they're what we could have been, what we might still become if we ever stop fighting long enough to remember how. The Admiral studied her young officer for a long moment, then returned her gaze to the view screen. The lieutenant makes a fair point, Ambassador. We came expecting to find either enemies or weaklings. We found neither. We found something we thought extinct, genuine peace. Phelan felt something shift in the conversation. Admiral, those raiders, they'll tell others about this system, about us. We've never needed protection before because we've never been noticed. But now? Now you're visible. Graves finished. And in this galaxy, visibility means vulnerability. She paused, then added, unless you have allies willing to stand between you and the dark. Chancellor Orveth's voice carried new weight. Admiral Graves, are you suggesting a treaty? I'm suggesting something unprecedented, Chancellor. The celestial harmony has achieved peace through isolation and fortune. Humanity has survived through strength and sacrifice. Separately, we're incomplete. Together, Graves allowed herself the smallest smile. Together, we might achieve what both our peoples truly want. And what is that? Joran asked. A galaxy where those diplomatic vessels of yours can travel safely, where your children can grow in peace, where humanity can finally lay down some of our weapons because we have something worth protecting again, something worth becoming peaceful for. Petros Nash's voice returned, softer now. My grandfather used to say that humanity sent those beacons like messages in bottles cast into an infinite ocean. He died believing no one would ever answer. Admiral, with your permission, I'd like to tell the Harmony what that beacon meant to us, what finding people who still believe in peace means to those of us who remember. Graves nodded. Permission granted, Nash. Ambassador Thalen, we'll be here for the next week securing your system. Perhaps during that time, your people and mine could talk, really talk, not as warriors and pacifists, but as two parts of what civilization could be. Phelan looked at the scarred warships on his view screen, then at the eager faces of his crew, then at the stars beyond. They had expected to welcome innocent explorers. Instead, they had met something far more complex, a species that had lost its innocence but not its humanity. Admiral, he said finally, I believe we have much to learn from each other. Chancellor, I recommend we accept this unprecedented opportunity. Agreed, Orveth replied. Let this day be remembered as the day peace and strength finally met and chose to walk forward together. As the human fleet maintained its protective vigil and the first shuttles began traveling between civilizations, Engineer Petros Nash stood in the agricultural bay of the Vindication, touching the soil that fed warriors, and allowed himself to cry. Somewhere in the void, his grandfather's hope had finally been answered. Not in the way any of them expected, but perhaps in the only way that could endure.